have 4 different children that have 4 different beautiful shades of skin color, 4 very different textures of hair.
Yeah.
I have hundreds of dollars of
Hair products.
Yes.
My name is Shassity Stevenson. I've been doing hair for over 11 years. As you know, a woman's hairstylist means more to her than just doing her hair. Over the years, I've put my therapist skills to the test. The salon is a place not only for personal venting, but also for discussion of current events amongst a community of women. So, if this chair could talk, this is what it would say. So, I would like for you to tell me a little bit about your family dynamics. Tell me, how you became a foster mom.
All right. Well, my husband and I have been married for about 10 years, and we actually talked about wanting to have adoption as part of our family dynamic when we were dating.
Awesome.
So once we got married, we started the licensing process. We went through and started our background checks and found some agencies that we like to work with, started the home study process, and we were matched fairly quickly. So we have done 3 domestic infant adoptions for our 3 daughters. So these are our 3 forever children.
Oh.
That was the path that we wanted to take with our family. And along the way, as we were in the adoption world, learning about different situations and what birth families go through and what happens with children as they grow and change along the way also, we started to uncover a lot about foster care and the foster care world, which was something that had not been on my radar at all beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things that you don't think about because it's pretty confidential, and you don't know until you know.
Right.
But we started asking some questions about foster care and decided that we wanted to become licensed foster parents. It took us about 2 years to come full circle of the beginning of our thought process about foster care to actually having the first 2 children in our home. And in about 3.5 years, we've had 5 little visitors through our home.
Oh, wow.
It has been a roller coaster.
Oh, wow.
I think Jenny may agree with me when people
Yes.
ask, what can I say about foster care? I say, it's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What ages or age range?
How
small?
We are licensed for children up to age 4.
Okay.
We have younger children in our home right now, so that's the best fit for our family dynamic.
Gotcha.
We want to make sure that we enter situations that are healthy fits for the children that we're welcoming into our home and healthy fits for what our family is able to support and sustain so that we're not causing a potential disruption down the
Right.
line to the kiddos.
Okay.
So right now the ages in our home range from 7 to 1.5. And
Oh,
we
wow.
we have 4 little girls right now.
Oh, nice. What about you, Jenny?
Well, I would say that we're almost the opposite of Sloan. We, my husband and I have been married 16 years, and we had 2 biological children. And when my kids were school aged, I went back to work. I started working at a nonprofit and really became aware that, gosh, we weren't really contributing to our community the way we should be. And so I kind of brought up the idea of fostering to my husband, and he immediately shot it down. And it took some time in him connecting with some people and him kind of coming to a place where he thought, this is something that would fit for us. And so we started fostering when our biological children were 7 and 5.
Okay.
And so we've been fostering for 5 years. And last June just adopted our 3rd placement, who is now 3 years old. And so he was with us for about 2 years before he became available to adopt. So we are a family of 3. I have a teenager, a tween, and a 3-year-old.
Oh, wow.
So
I'm sure that took some adjusting.
It absolutely has.
Yeah.
And there are days where I can't decide who the toddler is in my family. But it's definitely a balance. But we've had, like Sloan, we've had some beautiful children through our home, and we've had some great experiences as a family. And we're just really thankful to be a part of the fostering community. It's really opened our eyes to a world that we just weren't aware of.
Awesome. As a person who I'm very foreign to fostering, what is the typical time frame, or how can it vary from a child being with you?
There's nothing typical about
Nothing.
fostering. So
Okay.
I think that's the biggest challenge is, at least for me, I'm such a planner.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just the understanding that, next year, if we plan vacation, we may or may not have a baby with us. Um, it's you're in absolute no control. You really are just kind of along for the ride, and that's really, to me, that was a really hard.
Thing to adjust to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
The nature of foster care is very high level urgency. So when children are removed from their homes, they're removed pretty immediately.
Quickly.
As a foster parent, you get an hour or two's notice that there will be a child or children coming to your house, and you have a sliver of time to brace yourself for their arrival. And the same holds true for how their case plays out, how hard their parents are working. Case plans look different for every set of parents.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it could be a few days, or it could be a few months, or a few years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So how, I guess, as like with your biological children, how did you kind of introduce them? Like kind of like, how did you take with the road you took with your husband? How did you how did you do it with your kids?
Well, I think they were at a great age for it. So now they're normal. It's their normal, and they were
Mhm.
young enough that I mean, in the beginning we definitely had to have conversations that you don't typically have with 7 and 5 year olds.
Mhm.
But there's so much training that goes with it. So they knew that this is what we were preparing to do. And I mean, for us, the biggest struggle was we got our first placement of 2 girls. And after a week, one of the sisters went with her father. And it was hard for our 7 and 5 year old to understand how sisters didn't have the same father. And so those are conversations
Yeah.
that aren't easy to have. But
And you don't really think about
yeah,
explaining it until you have to.
yeah. But in the same bent, I appreciate all the authentic conversations I've been able to have with my children through the years because of actual experience.
Life. Mhm.
And them getting to meet people that, I mean, even us getting to meet people that we never would have met in other circumstances. And so for me, I hope that it's a blessing to my children.
Mhm.
It's hopefully teaching them empathy and compassion. I always tell people, we want our kids to know you don't just love your neighbors in theory, like
You really
you
do.
really
You
like
show
we're
it.
showing them how you love your neighbors, and that it's not easy and it's not clean. It can be messy and
Mhm.
hard, and some days it's better than others.
Yeah.
So
That's pretty cool. How did you, I guess, in different like friend circles or families, like how would you say like your extended family reacted to, this choice that you made? Was there any, judgment or any type of, what are the questions, I guess, that you
Mhm.
got other than like why?
I think there's a lot of confusion
Uh-huh.
from people. I think as my husband and I pursued adoption as our first choice, we had to explain that to some of our family members. A lot of our family members knew that this had been on our hearts beforehand and understood that about our personalities. But certainly entering the world of foster care is different. And people who love you want to protect you,
Mhm.
and they don't want to see your heart break. So a lot of that is explaining that we understand we're putting our hearts on the line. We understand that this is very vulnerable, not just for us, but for our intimate family and for, for our broader family as well. It's a greater impact, but also a greater access of love that our families can tap into, and that these children get to experience being loved wholly for who they are for however long we get to have them.
mhm.
What about you, Jenny?
We've
Anything that sticks out?
we've been really fortunate. Our families, even though PT and I don't come from a background where anyone's ever adopted or done foster care, our extended families embraced it. We have a great community of friends who would rush in and bring us. As Sloan said, you have kids that show up on your doorstep, and all of a sudden you have a 2-year-old after, years of not having a 2-year-old,
Mhm.
and they bring you meals and things. And so we've really felt that support. I think the thing we weren't ready for was how we not only were putting our hearts on the line, we knew that the first time my father said goodbye to our little one that had been with us for almost a year, we were visiting, and I just saw him tear up, and I realized, I thought, oh, well, you guys are all kind of unwilling participants in this. And that was hard, but nobody in my family resents it.
Mhm.
But and it's always hard to see someone you love, sad.
Right.
So
So, you have adopted and foster?
Yes.
Okay. So, as you saw in the email, I titled it, yes, that's my mom, because I know a lot of times kids will, question your kids and be
Yeah.
like, wait, so
Mhm.
that's your mom? That's what I had it titled as first,
Mhm.
but I was like, I don't know how that would read. But how did you help them explain that? I've had that conversation with a few of my moms in the salon, and I know one in particular, she went out and actually hosted, it was some particular day that her classroom was having. And so she chose to use that opportunity because she was getting hammered with questions like,
Mhm.
wait, so that's your mom? And
Yep.
do you need my mom to help you do your hair? Like they didn't understand it. So do you have any experience or any
Yes,
thing?
we've encountered that a lot in my
Yes.
family.
Yeah.
So in my family, there's no biological connection. There's, of course, deep familial connection with
Uh-huh.
all of the children in my
Right.
family. But everyone looks different.
Mhm.
We have 4 different children that have 4 different beautiful shades of skin color, 4 very different textures of hair.
Yeah.
I have hundreds of dollars of
Hair
hair
products.
products
Yes.
at my house. And yes, we come across that frequently, and my children come across that
Yeah.
often also,
Yeah.
whether it's riding the school bus
Mhm.
and they want to know, what, that's your sister?
Mm-hmm.
Or, at the playground, in the grocery store. Some of that we've been able to help elevate awareness in our preschools. We'll send in books at the beginning of the school year that address
love
how
that.
different families look different. We have this one great book right now for my 6-year-old who has the most gorgeous, large, curly, just thick and fabulous hair. And she's very proud of it, but
Yeah.
is not, doesn't love everyone touching it. So
Yeah.
we just got a book called Don't Touch My Hair.
Don't touch my hair.
And it's great. It's about this little girl who looks just very much like my
her.
6-year-old who's got this big, gorgeous hair. And it's about how she can be proactive and educate other people in her community and say, my hair is beautiful. I don't want you to touch it today,
Mhm.
but let's talk about something else instead.
Yeah.
So some of that is my children being able to stand up for themselves in conversations and talk about how all families look different. My husband and I have been thoughtful and stumbled along the way, and then tried to redirect how we can put our families in situations with other families that look like ours,
Mhm.
that look different, because too much homogeny is going to be hard for our kiddos with our family, as colorful as it is. So making sure that we're with other friends and families at the playground and in our church, in our school, in our preschool, and our family life as well.
That's awesome. I try to, because even like I would get people that want to touch my hair, and I always kind of tell even like my little kids that come in, it's like any other part of your body.
Right.
You don't get to just touch it,
Mhm.
because you want to. You need to ask me. You need
Yes.
to, I can explain. But that's one thing about curly hair. It's so fascinating, and it's so rare. It's so rare and exotic that it's fascinating. People
Mhm.
want to like they're curious,
Right.
that more than anything.
Well,
So
and for me, I have long, straight hair. It's kind of a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My hair does a ponytail,
It is
and that's about
magical.
it.
Yeah.
yeah.
So feeling these luscious curls is my hands just want to dive
Mhm.
in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's on the flip side. I tell people that immediately get offended. It's like, look, everybody doesn't mean you harm. It's a lot of just curiosity, and it's sometimes foreign to a lot of people. You've never, if you've never seen it before, and every head is different. So even if you've seen someone with curly hair, the next person, it may look, totally different. So I may have to get that book and keep it in the salon.
Yeah, that's cute. That sounds like a great book.
Yeah. What about you, Jenny?
We have for sure had instances where there's confusion. We, after a soccer game, had somebody call security because they thought my toddler was on his own and he was actually with his sister. And so there are a lot of times when we're places where I'd intentionally go up, like because we're on because my kids are older, my big two. We're at a lot of sporting events. So, and 3-year-olds like to wander.
Right.
So I just kind of sometimes touch base just to kind of make sure people realize who he's connected to. I probably in a little bit different sense, I have middle schoolers, and the first time we went to a parent-teacher conference, we were coming out with baby brother, and I heard one of Preston's classmates say, "Preston's brother is black," and so it's been also for my older two, having a black sibling and understanding what that means for them, and my oldest doesn't like to stick out. Well, he's in middle school, but he doesn't like to stick out, and so we're like, well, we do what we can.
Right. So, I guess let's say because you said is he the one in middle school?
Well, they're actually my oldest two are both middle school.
Both middle school. I guess from any experiences with school and things like that, have you ever encountered him having to defend him at all, or no? As far as trouble, people being prejudging or anything like that.
We haven't. We've been really fortunate.
That's awesome.
But it is one thing that kind of makes our family stand out more than we were used to. It's a new experience.
How do you prepare him for being Black in America? How do you think that will go or has gone?
Ooh,
it's a tough. I know it's a tough one.
Yeah, it's for us, obviously we can't share experiences, and so we've done our best to really learn and read, and we're doing a better job of surrounding ourselves by people that can share their experience. And so he has people in his life that look like him, so he's not constantly around people that don't share his experience. So we know we have a lot of work ahead of us, and especially having a little boy, we are very aware of what that means. And I'm hopeful that the climate today will result in a world when he's an adult where he won't have to worry about some of the things that we worry about now.
Right. So I remember watching This Is Us. I haven't watched it in forever, but this particular episode stuck out. I'm sure you probably know what I'm going to say, where the mom was at the pool and
the sunscreen question.
Yeah.
And she was telling her about when he gets out of the pool, you need to, put lotion on, and when, take him to this kind of barber. Have you had that person that was able to kind of guide you, whether it's your son or daughter, and kind of, this is what you need to do?
So for our family, we have been very lucky to have some special friends, members of our church community, members of, now that we're deeper into the foster care community, members of the foster community who've been very helpful to us as we address different kinds of skin concerns with eczema and ashiness and wintertime skin versus summertime skin. And then the hairstyling, which is something that is so new to me.
Yeah.
These last 7 years have been a whirlwind of absorbing as much information as possible on hair care tips and tricks and styling.
What have you learned,
moisturizing? Moisture,
Yes.
moisture.
Right.
Always.
What's your favorite hairstyle to do?
Right now, my best trick is to do puffs.
Okay.
My 4-year-old loves twists.
Okay.
and I can do a few twists and then my fingers start to cramp up. But luckily, I have some friends who
That
are
can do
good
it
at
for you.
twists who will come do princess twists when
Okay.
she needs her princess twists
Okay.
done.
What do you think about the time that it takes versus the time that it may take to do your hair?
Oh, it's so eye-opening. It's
I truly had no idea.
yeah.
This is a whole new world.
Isn't it?
Yep.
Do you now understand more why we go to the hair salon more often?
Yes.
Yes.
And why, sometimes with people wearing hair extensions is not necessarily a thing of not having hair. It's like a low maintenance because it takes forever. Or why the little black girl may not be able to go swimming as often.
Yes.
Yes, I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
For us this summer, swimming was a big one.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted to be at the pool and at the beach as often as possible, and that salt water and that chlorine it does a
devil.
number.
Yes.
It really
Yeah.
does.
Yes. It's one thing that you will never understand until you're in situations like you guys, because it is something that we start very early on, like 4 years old, and it's one of those things that like you have to protect your hair at any cost, like, from sleeping to extracurricular activities to scheduling your appointments. It's a major part of everyday life for us. Jenny, do you have any special
Well,
tricks
I mean, we certainly
or
joke
favorite?
since I've only had baby girls and
Okay.
now I have a little boy, but still, I definitely had the experience where another foster mom kind of came up and tapped his head and was like, "Hey, what do you know about what you should be putting in his hair?" And I was like, "I don't know anything."
Would you have ever asked someone?
We were. He was still really little at that point,
Gotcha.
but
She was just going to jump start on it.
yeah,
Gotcha.
and I'm thankful for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We had certainly. I mean, when we took our first placement, I remember being there with the social workers, and they were two Black older women, and I was taking a 3-year-old and a baby home. And she had her hair in ponytails with knockers. And I looked at the social worker and I said, "This is my first placement." And I was like, "Can you, like, what do I need to know about her hair?" And she said, "Oh, honey, just go to the ethnic aisle." And I was like, and that's all she.
And did you see that aisle?
Oh yeah, and I
The
stood
aisles.
there. Yeah, and I sometimes I stand there and I think people think I'm lost because I'm like I'll be trying something new and they were probably like, "Oh, honey, you don't need to be in the aisle." And I'm like, "No, I do. I do." So there's been a big education, but this very kind woman bought some stuff for me and showed me how she mixes it up and how to put it in his hair, and it was really helpful. Probably our funniest experience is the first time my husband took him to the barber shop.
Ooh, how'd that go?
Well, he
took him to his barber?
No. So we know, like,
Okay.
we know, especially for boys,
Yeah.
like this is a big piece of culture. And so we wanted to honor that. And so my husband found a barber shop near our house, and he said he walked in, and it was like the music stopped. Everybody was like, "Who's this guy?" But they were fantastic. The barber said, "What do you want me to do with his hair?" And my husband said, "What do you think we should do with his hair?" And so it's been really great. But the first time was for sure
eye-opening.
Yeah.
Yeah. I asked that question because I know it can be an intimidating situation. And just as I'm asking you guys, your experiences, what would make that less intimidating, if anything? Because I feel like that's something that, so I mentioned this on a previous podcast. I'm in a lot of mom groups. And for research purposes, I obviously don't have kids, but it's for me to kind of see like what questions are being asked, what advice is being given, things that are right or wrong. I just want to know. And so I was in this particular group, and it was for parents of biracial children, actually. And a mom asked a question, and it was just about, I think it was hair extensions. And she just asked what age would be appropriate. So I mean, everybody just started like attacking her. And I knew for some reason, just from the way she acts, that she was actually looking for backup, like reinforcement, because I think the daughter wanted it. But everyone was judging her, and she was a white mom, and they were prejudging her on the fact that they thought that that's what she needed. Like that's what the mom thought that she needed. When, she came back and said that, no, she wants it. And I want other moms' advice on, hopefully backing me up that no, she's too young. So again, going back to the whole thing that everyone, a lot of times people are just curious, and it's one of those things that I think as Black women, we can be a little defensive about, or a little, aggressive about. So like I said, with the experience where the mom came to me and, actually, honestly, I felt it was an honor because she felt comfortable, whereas she may not have felt that before. So if you had any insight or any feedback on, making that a more, obviously you guys, have, families that look like you have friends, you're lucky, to be able to connect with people that can help you. But there are so many parents that don't have that. And I would like all those moms to be able to, approach someone, maybe even a stranger, that they see have a child that looks like, theirs, or, may know anything, so it's not as intimidating.
Right. Well, I will say we have gotten a lot of advice and support along the way. We've gotten a lot of unsolicited advice, and that can be, in the line at the grocery store
Yeah.
or getting a cup of coffee.
What's that like?
Sometimes it feels a little abrasive to me if I have not had enough coffee in the morning and someone is offering me advice on my child's hair. Usually it is very lovingly given, and I try to receive it that way as well. I think making information available, so saying, hey, I noticed that you have this beautiful child. If you ever have any questions or need help with hair, please reach out to me. That feels like a safe encounter for me if I am at the very beginning stages of things. There's so much information out there. It honestly can be a little bit overwhelming.
Listen, there are moms that are Black moms that have the same struggles. So, I mean, yeah, they may have hair that like looks like their kids, but honestly, if they're going to the hair salon every week, they're not really. So trust me, all of us are not, professionals, but I even struggle. Like if I'm in Target, there's been so many times I've gone in Target and I have these little flyers for the Curly Kids campaign, and I want to bring them in, but then I'm like, I don't want to approach someone and them take it like your hair looks terrible. Here, you need to come. So I struggle with kind of even, balancing that approach.
Right.
So.
And I think a lot of parents, my nature as a parent is to be protective of my children. That's
absolutely.
The way I'm designed. That's the way parents are designed.
Right.
But I'm coming from a place of understanding that someone is trying to help you and support your learning knowledge of this child and how to care for them is really important.
Right. Yeah. What about you, Jenny? Any feedback?
I think that's probably the hardest thing, is just on both ends. Nobody wants to offend anybody, and sometimes we miss opportunities.
I agree. That's a great way to put it. Yeah. Well, maybe through this conversation, we can get, a way to kind of bring the two worlds together, like you said, in a less abrasive and less critical type of environment. Also, I think volunteering would, be a very nurturing and gentle kind of situation to give that knowledge. I know you guys did some where, the parents kind of shared information. So I think that's great as well.
Yeah, I think we have lots of opportunities in the Charlotte market for salons to open up sometimes where they might offer kind of drop-in pop-up classes where families could come in and learn a little bit about twists or braids or just basic hairstyling because every texture is so different as I am learning.
Do we have any braiders? No, not yet. Not yet. Do your babies want? Yours are too young, probably. Do they have the desire? Have they asked for that? Requested that style?
My oldest likes princess braids.
Okay.
My 4-year-old, who has very, very beautiful but very kinky, very dense hair, has a sensitive scalp, so she likes the twists, but the braids are really hard for
Hard,
her head.
yeah.
We've
Yeah.
only done that once, and she does not want to
No.
do it again. She has to forget about it before she'll want to do it again.
I don't blame her. What do you think our best way to bridge the gap, other than the volunteering, other than the giving of the advice of the whole stereotype that, white people shouldn't adopt Black children? Because honestly, I'll just start. I think that love is love. And I think that's something that we are forever learning and accepting more, just even in not necessarily parenting. And I think that, children need love, period. And it should not necessarily matter what the parent looks like, because that, love can be given and received from, anyone. So I would like, what is your, take on how sometimes people can perceive that or even have that, stereotype as we saw in the video?
Right.
Well, especially in foster care, for us, we get phone calls and we don't know anything about the children that are coming to our house, and so sometimes I certainly have done enough reading and researching and understand the sensitivity to the white savior narrative, but we didn't know what color.
Right. It wasn't a choice.
Yeah. So we just responded to, there's a baby in the NICU. And honestly, when we went to go get him, he was a preemie, and he was very light. I mean, we didn't have any idea what kind of baby we were taking home. And
so you didn't know, they didn't know his race?
They don't tell you. They don't really tell you. You just kind of,
not even when you take them in?
Not really. Wow. No, it's very, I remember after a week you go to court for a hearing, and that's where my husband met his mother.
Gotcha.
And he came back and she said she's African American. I mean, she's African American. She said he's African American. And, he was just teeny. I mean, he was only 6 pounds. And so that's a struggle for me, because we brought home the children, and we've had children of all different races in our house. And so, for us, our job was to provide a safe place for the children as long as they needed it. And I definitely feel like, I don't know if you feel this way, Sloan, I feel like This Is Us is great, and it can be not great. Sometimes it gives a good starting point for conversation. Although we, struggle to tell everyone not every child has a beautiful story like Randall. And we definitely don't want to be people who burst balloons, but that's not necessarily the kind of story everybody has.
Right.
But we like that it's a talking point for people, and it gives people a frame of reference. Sometimes pop culture can be really valuable that way. But I try to be respectful of where people are coming from, because there's a history that, I have read a lot about, and I understand there's a lot of damaging things. So I could see where there's resentment for white people, and especially I feel like raising Black boys, like, it's easy to say, what do we know? I mean, because what do we know about raising a Black boy? But we know that we love him enough to figure out everything we can, and we want to make sure he's connected to his culture, and we're excited to learn about a new culture. It's been really fun for our family to realize that there's a whole world that we weren't that connected to. We went to our first Juneteenth celebration this year, and
I was just going to say, have you ever heard the term invited to the barbecue? Have you?
Well, and we understand that maybe Braden gets invited to the barbecue and we don't. And that's, we're okay with that, because we want to be respectful. We understand that sometimes white people can really infringe on Black space, and we don't want to be a part of that. So we want to make sure that our son is welcomed in, and sort of like Kristen Davis said in the interview, you don't have to like us, but please embrace our child. And we want to do what we can to make sure he's connected to his community, but first and foremost, we're going to make sure that he feels loved, and we're going to give him all the tools that he can to be successful in life. So
You can't
Yes.
ask for much more than that.
Yes, 100% what Jenny said.
Yeah.
Supporting that cultural exposure and being supportive and open and loving. Mhm.
I can say, I didn't tell you guys this, but my brother, he's adopted, and we've had him since he was 2 days old.
Mhm.
And I mean, just coming from a place, obviously he looks like me, but it's just, he's my brother. And I don't think of, anything different. My mom is his mom, and, we are family. And I think that's one thing that, when it comes to fostering adoption, and honestly, like I said, there are so many unknowns to me on how that process is. Like I said, I didn't know that you don't even know their race, or, how long you'll have them, or how much time you have to prepare to have them.
Right.
But I think that, having loving parents and connected parents that, want to foster that relationship with the family they have, and also, the family that they might have, left. One experience I had with a client was, she came to me, and she was having hair issues, and it was more like a hair loss. She was an older young lady. She was probably mid-20s. And I started to ask her questions because it seemed like something that was more of a genetic thing, not necessarily like neglect or things that she was doing. And one thing that she told me, obviously, was that she was adopted. And because I was like, well, does your mom have, thinning, or, does your dad have like male pattern baldness, any type of hair loss that you can see that would be in your family history? And she didn't know. And I do understand that sometimes, like when it's, adoption, that you may not ever find out,
Right.
who your parents are, or what, that's like. So it was pretty awesome to share, again, an experience where she felt comfortable. She actually reached out to me through my Curly Kids campaign. So she's obviously not a curly kid anymore, but she's a curly
Right.
adult. But she had told me that for years, she didn't feel comfortable. She didn't have any resources. The parents that she know, they were white parents, and she just, always had a struggle with just kind of figuring out her hair, period. And then when she started having these issues, she didn't know what it was a result of. So, like I said, it's just, to me, I take it as an opportunity to just love on people a little bit more, because, like I said, I know what hair can mean to people.
Yeah.
Right.
And I also know the struggle
Yeah. Yeah.
that, like I said, comes with all people of all races, all ages. It's not necessary. I mean, I have my girly white girls that are like, what do I do with it? So it's one thing I also tell people is hair is hair. And if you, just don't be afraid of it. It is different. It just may be a little bit more tightly wound, but there are so many people that, want to help, and they want to help you look good. So
Right.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, we really do.
And they want to help you cut down on the time that you spent in the products,
Yes.
because that is one of the main things. Do you know, like, this is $1 billion
I believe
industry.
it. I tell people all the time, my 3-year-old has more products than
Than
I
you.
do.
No.
What
It's
have you found that
incredible.
works for her?
So we use a lot of the Carol's Daughters
Okay.
stuff. That we use the hair cream just to keep his scalp moist, and he uses the Shea Co-Wash
Okay.
and body soap.
Okay.
So we use that. It's kind of interesting. My daughter has curly hair, and I don't. And I at first was really perplexed by that. And so every now and then I'll get a product for a brother, and I'll be like, "Hey, get Braden's detangler. I think that would work in your hair too." So it's been good all around in our house. My education on hair products and curly hair.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we can all use a little bit of help in the education department. I think the learning curve is steep for sure. I look forward to the day where my girls
Can do it.
understand their hair enough and want to
Mhm.
and feel empowered enough to take care of their hair themselves.
Themselves.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that continued education from myself and from others in
Mhm.
the community, the hair care community, is really important.
Mm.
And that's one of the things that we're doing also at Foster Village Charlotte.
Mhm.
We've got some amazing volunteers like Shassity who's coming in to help talk to some of our parents about what it looks like to care for different textures of hair, some different things that we can do to protect the scalp, to protect
Mhm.
the hair. We're moving away from the summer months, so maybe less about swimming, but
Right.
how we can help with styling and
Mhm.
school looks,
Right.
staying clean and nice looking.
Yeah. And something that you don't have to do every day.
Right.
Mhm.
The maintenance.
The
Yes.
maintenance,
Yes.
low maintenance.
My
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah,
Yep.
so we really appreciate that too.
Yes.
That's really important for us as we continue to grow our foster community and be supportive of the children and the families that we're working
Mhm.
with.
Now with Foster Village Charlotte, right?
Yes.
Foster Village
Mhm.
Charlotte. Okay. About how many moms do you have, or families, I guess, do you have a part of it?
So Foster Village Charlotte is a local nonprofit that
Okay.
was started about a year and a half ago by myself and 3 other foster moms.
Awesome.
And we started with the mission of coming alongside the foster families who are loving and caring for our most vulnerable children. So our goal is to bring the community into this practice and have different workshops where the community can be supportive of the families who are caring for the kids. And this looks like continuing education. This looks like emotional, social support. This looks like showing up with tangible needs for the kids when they arrive with that very short notice on the doorstep. We have our Welcome Pack program where we can show up within a few hours of children entering a new home with a kind of a weekend bag of supplies that includes hair products. We do have some organizations who have donated ethnic hair kits to us, which is
Cool.
really helpful
Mm-hmm.
when we get referrals for families who've never dealt with textured hair before.
Yeah.
We always try to give them some extra hair care supplies. And so far this year, we've served a little over 200 families.
Wow.
Mhm.
So that looks like
That's amazing.
a lot of interaction and
Such a
engagement.
blessing.
Yeah.
We've got over 600 children in foster care right now in Mecklenburg County. So something that we can continue to engage in
Yeah.
and work on is stabilizing those families so that the kiddos can have the healthiest experience possible for as long as they are in the home.
Mm-hmm. And if people want to find out more about what you guys are doing, how do they do that?
You can find us on our website, which is fostervillagecharlotte.org. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for joining me today and enlightening our listeners on, what the experience you guys and your families have had. And I look forward to working with you guys very soon.
Yes,
Yes,
thank you so much
thank
for
you so
having us.
much.
No problem.